What's harder, the final 500 meters of a long distance race on the water or standing in front of a panel of judges defending your business model?
That's actually a tough one. I would say
Hello and welcome into Suns Out Stangs Out, Radio Western's newest summer Western Mustang sports show. My name is Alex McComb and I'm your host. This is episode number 2 of the show, and I'm joined by Western rowing alum and Hairstrong founder, Nicole Baranowski. Nicole, thanks for taking the time to be with me today.
Yeah, I'm so excited to chat with you, Alex.
Nicole, I just want to mention to our listeners that our time as Western Mustangs was almost exactly at the same time, yet I don't think we ever met. Your first year in 2015 was, a year before my first year in 2016. We were both national champions in the same year, 2017, and had multiple provincial championships in our undergrads. It's always nice to meet someone from the same Mustangs era, the pre-pandemic era, the Snapchat filter era. I'm back in London now, and with the current athletes being, late 2000s, who have never experienced dial-up internet. So I feel like Unk right now. What comes to mind for you as some of the most memorable moments for you at Western?
That's really funny how you bring up Snapchat filters. I feel like that was the key to taking pictures with your friends and not being super embarrassed by them. And also, even though Snapchat was around, I feel like you took these pictures, but they disappeared. So they weren't on the internet, but now I feel like everything is on the internet permanently, just like on Instagram or TikTok. Some of my most memorable times can be attributed to rowing. I feel like in my first year, I went in without being part of a sport or a team. And in second year, I kind of missed that sporting environment because I had sports part of my whole life before then. And I really wanted to be part of a team again. So I tried out for the rowing team. I've never rowed before in my life, but I heard they took walk-on. So I'm like, okay, well, how hard could this be? Very hard, very hard. I went in to try out for the team, and my only goal for their tryouts was like not to come last for their beep test. And I came last for the beep test. Technically, it was with another person, so I could say second last. But anyways, I really did really well in the strength portion, which is why they took me on. And my life did a whole 180 from like going out to and staying out till 4 a.m. to actually getting up for practice at 4 a.m. and the lifestyle change with that and like the teammates and everything, like that's what I attribute a very big part of my Western journey to. Not to say we did have good times too as a team, and but just wasn't very often. It was mainly like training, working, and meeting such incredible people through the sport.
You've admitted you weren't a morning person, had basically no rowing experience before coming to Western. What exactly was the sales pitch that actually got you down to the boathouse at 5 a.m?
Great question. I think in my first year, I think all first year athletes get like a promo flyer into their welcome kits to like try out for rowing. So in my first year, the seed was already planted. But in my first year, I was like, I'm not getting up at 5. That is absurd. And then the year passed and I wasn't part of any sports, and that void was really like getting to me. I'm like, wow, I don't really know a life without sports, and I kind of want it back in my life. And so then I decided that sacrifice of like getting up in the morning was worth becoming part of a team again. So it wasn't more of like, oh, you need to do this to join. It was, I don't want this not in my life, and this is the only way I could see it. And at the beginning of the year, they have a big meeting or a big gathering to introduce the sport, to introduce like some of the athletes on the team. And I remember the second year that I went to this intro meeting, they had one of the Olympians come and talk about how she joined the novice rowing team and then she became an Olympian. And that was really inspiring. And so I thought, okay, well, this is a doable path. Why not try it out?
Is there a specific race or national championship moment at Western that still gives you goosebumps when you think about it?
Good question. I think one of my most scariest races was, I think in 2018, where I had to race the single. And for anyone that doesn't know rowing, there's different boat classes. So you could race in an 8-person boat, a 4-person with 1 or 2 oars. There's 2-person boats with a 1 or 2 oars, and then there's a single. So you're by yourself and you're up at the race line against 5 other athletes. And at this point, I only had like 2 years, 2.5 years of rowing under my belt, and I was very nervous. The single boat race is very technical, and it's on you. Like if you're not going fast, you're the reason why you're not going fast. Like it's very obvious who like the most technical and the fittest people are on that water, and you can't really like blame anyone else or put the weight on anyone else but yourself. And so I think being in that boat and racing at provincials and at nationals, knowing that I just had to go out and do my best, knowing that it might not go as well, was what I had to do. And in the provincials, I ended up going into the A final, which is like the top six. And then in nationals, I think I went in B final. So I think I was like either seventh or eighth nationally, which again, like putting into retrospect, like that's pretty good. But in my competitive mind, I'm like, okay, well, it's not good enough, and I don't know how I'm going to do this. But I was going against some like really fast people that are on the national team that are racing internationally. And so at the time, it was very scary. But looking back on it now, I'm like, wow, like I did a pretty good job considering all that.
Now, there's a lot of early mornings involved with rowing. What is the most sleep deprived thing you or a teammate ever did during those pre-dawn practices?
Well, I could say that pretty much each practice, I may have been sleep deprived just because it was so early. And if I didn't get to bed on time, it was a struggle getting up, but you still got up because you had to show up for your teammates. But I remember in particular this one time when I maybe got 2 or 3 hours of sleep. And this was right when exams were done in April. Like I'm coming to the lake. It's the sun's coming out. Like you could see the sunrise at this point because in the fall, like once it gets late into the fall, it's pitch dark. But at this point, like you saw the sun up, it was light out, and it was my first summer season coming off of that novice year. So at this point, like I did my whole first novice season, and this summer we're like training and trying to get onto the varsity team for fall. And so this was my first time being introduced to the single, like this boat where you're by yourself. And there's this type of single that's called a trainer single, which is like a bit wider. It just doesn't go as fast, but it's really good when you're learning the balance and the technique of how to place your oars in the water, of how to feel the water while you're going by yourself. And you do this first before going into like a racing single or a regular single, because it's just easier for the balance. And if you don't have a lot of experience, like that's what you try out. And I went in and my coach asked me, like, do you want to do the training single or do you want to just be put in this regular single? And I just said, put me in the regular single. Like, what's the worst that can happen? I'll flip. Anyways, we go and I get help bringing this single down to the dock, and I get in and sit into this single, and I already feel like so unbalanced and so uncomfortable. And again, 2 hours on sleep. And right after I got pushed off of the dock, I got my coach to put me back in and say, give me that training single because I'm going to flip like every 5 minutes if I keep doing this. And so I got him to bring me back up. We brought this boat back all the way up and then brought the training single all the way down, which is way heavier. Anyways, I didn't flip that practice, but I was very glad that I switched out those boats because otherwise I'd probably be in the water for the most of the 90 minutes.
You know, every team has that one, bus trip story or away tournament story. For me, it was singing Forever by Chris Brown on the bus in 2016, because that was just the thing you had to do on your first trip. What's the most memorable or hilarious thing that happened to you during a road trip?
So it was, I think the fall of 2017. Yeah, the fall of 2017, we were coming back from a tournament or like a regatta from Guelph. And at this point, we were on the highway on this bus, and traffic just started so heavily coming in for like at a certain point from Guelph to London. And we were all just like so tired, so exhausted from racing. We just wanted to get back home. And I was going to a concert that night. I wanted to get back so I wouldn't be late for this concert. And we're just sitting on this highway. And then it turns out it's because there was like an accident or some road closure, whatever. And we saw the exit ramp before the traffic started, and we had just missed that exit ramp. And we started like yelling at the bus driver to start reversing to go back and get off at that exit ramp. Like we were very close to it. And we got stopped by the police. We did not make it to that exit ramp, and we just had to wait in the traffic on the way home.
Oh my goodness. Uh, um, you mentioned, about the Olympians at Western. If you look up Olympics at Western, a lot of it's just all rowing almost. Obviously, a strong legacy at Western. Who was like a coach or a teammate that pushed you the hardest when you were on the team?
A lot of the women that I looked up to had recently graduated from the rowing program. Like we would be like a year apart. So if I had started in first year, I would have raced with them in my second year. But because I had started my second year, it was me being in this novice program bubble and then seeing all the amazing female rowers that are coming out from the program. And there's so many, and some of them were even my coaches, and then now they're like one of some of my good friends to today. And just to see the sheer discipline, determination, and passion that they have towards a sport and they have towards life. And now I'm seeing that translate from the rowing world to what they're doing in their life. And it's not just how you show up in sport, it's how you show up everywhere. And they're extremely successful in getting to where they want to go. And I just think that that pushes me to be better every single day. And I'm just like very grateful that our times got to overlap and that I got to see that side of them and how it could come out in me as well. But again, like the program has really brought up such incredible athletes that it's hard to just name one. I can have like a group of people that I look up to and say like they really did inspire me and have a huge impact on my life.
If I ever found myself at a rowing practice during your time, what would I find out quickly about the team culture?
Oh gosh. We oh, that's a really good question. Um, One is that you don't quit a piece once you've started it. So a lot of the times, and what I mean by a piece is like a workout or like a part of a workout. So let's say one day we had the workout on the machine rower was 3 by 20 minutes. So you finish that whole piece. And that is like the standard where you finish and then you put out your best. And if you had stopped for any reason, like that wasn't really allowed, not because of like injury aside and anything like that aside, mentally, you had to show up, not even for yourself, but just for your team as well. Like you finish this because you want it to be the best. And this idea of excellence was ingrained in every thing that we did so that we could become the best in the country. And another thing that you would quickly learn is that if you're not 5 minutes early, you're late. Because it takes a lot to wrangle like 80 people together in one room to start a practice. Like imagine if we just kept waiting for everyone to show up. So sometimes you would get called out for it and it would be really funny. And that's like the two of the things that come top of mind where how you show up and like what time you show up matters.
I think what separates collegiate athletics from pro sports is the traditions. What traditions do you remember from your team, whether it's something small from practice or something you did before an event? Do you remember what those times were like?
Um, Great question. I think in terms of like team, I remember doing, we have like these long Saturday sessions in the winter. So sometimes they would be like two sessions in a day, and each session would be like 2 to 3 hours long. And then we'd get a rest day on Monday, which was like amazing. And we'd put it on Monday so that we could take full use of the daylight if there was any on the Saturday, Sunday, even in the summer, fall. That's pretty memorable for me. Another one is the night before big regattas and big, I guess, tournaments. We'd go out for dinner as a team just to get in the headspace of like, we're in this together. Let's do this. Like, we worked really hard for this outcome, whatever that might be tomorrow. And let's just show up as a team and tackle this together. Other things would be like the first year welcome party that we'd have, welcoming all the new recruits and just having one big, I'll say party together before the seriousness and the of the season began, just to set that tone of like camaraderie and being there for each other.
You know, 10 years ago, you wanted to be a physiotherapist when you enrolled at Western, right?
Well, yeah, I just didn't know what else to do. I'm like, yeah, physio sounds cool.
At what point did you realize and your brain was wired more for the business of sport rather than, rehab?
It was honestly from my internships. Once I did two different internships. I did one when I came home summer of my first year. I had a job, and then I would intern at a physio clinic after my job. And then my second year, I volunteered at Fowler, and went and did that. And after those two experiences, I realized that it wasn't fast paced enough for me. And not to say that clinics don't get busy and then you have to do like all these different things, but I just found that from my time, like it wasn't stimulating enough and I needed more. And I was kind of bored. Like it wasn't what was bringing out the best in me. And I realized that it wasn't for me. And then that's when I just kind of didn't really know what I wanted to do with my degree in terms of like the business side and knowing that was the path. In my second year, I took the pre-Ivy business course 2257, and I after that course I was almost convinced that business wasn't for me because I wasn't getting it wasn't clicking for me, and I felt like very defeated most days because I didn't really understand the concepts. And it wasn't until fourth year that I took a course in kinesiology called Entrepreneurship in Kinesiology, where I came up with the idea of Hairstrong. And the only reason I came up with that was to solve my own problem. At this point, it wasn't, oh, I'm going to start this business and this is what it's going to look like. It's, oh, we were assigned to make a business plan for a mark. And if I create a prototype and if I create this business plan, I will get a good mark. So it wasn't even to monetize it. And if I create this prototype and solve my own problem, I won't have to worry about my hair anymore while I practice or while I row. So the intention initially wasn't even to start this business, but coincidentally, on the day that I pitched it, two business advisors from the Morissette entrepreneurship community saw me and told me, hey, you should turn this into business. Like this has a lot of potential. And they just believed in it and believed in me before I even saw that. And I just trusted them and said, okay, I'll do it. Why not? What do I have to lose? And then it just never left my side.
I think kinesiology is one of those degrees where a lot of people come into it with one goal in mind, and then 4 years later, they're somewhere else. That was me. I did kin as well. Wanted to be a GM of a pro sports franchise. That didn't work out when I got a 51 in 1220 back in first year, and a 51 in microeconomics, and now I'm in sports media. So I love it when the health science student council brings me back for talks, and I'm the one like sports media guy as like the one like difference. Physiotherapy, chiro, all these other physical rehab. People, and then there's just me in the sports media space. So it's always good to have that other option. I do want to ask, just so our listeners know, can you tell us what Hairstrong is?
Yes. Hairstrong is my company that I started because I was tired of hair accessories not holding up properly for sport, movement, long-term wear. All of the one size fits all elastics and accessories out there weren't working for me. And my whole time growing up, I just immediately defaulted to my hair being the problem. It was too long, too thick, too much. And it wasn't until I saw other people resonate with that exact mindset and that exact pain point and framing that I realized my hair was actually never the problem. It was these products that we tried to use and fit within our use cases that just weren't working. And so I thought, okay, well, if shoes have sizes, clothes have sizes, why don't hair products, since we have such different hair types, lengths, textures, everything? It really doesn't make sense that we were expected to fit into these one size bands. And so once I realized that, I thought, how could I make these bands adjustable at scale? And so I designed my first product, which was like an adjustable hairband that could actually stay put during any intense heavy exercise without ripping your hair or damaging your hair too much, and then launched other variations of that throughout the years. And now we're launching headbands, which has been like our most requested product. So essentially it's like giving you the chance to just like put your hair up and forget about it, so you could focus on your goals, your sport, your day, without fussing and having that as a distraction.
Are you wearing one right now?
Oh, I am. It's in. So I looped it, and then you have this to tighten. And then that's what keeps it in place.
Nice. You mentioned you took an entrepreneurship course in your undergrad, I believe. Do you remember the moment that sparked the idea in that class project you had that eventually would become your brand today?
Yeah, I was actually sitting towards the back of the class with another friend in that class, and the professor asked us what problems we face every day. And up until this point, I didn't really realize you could create a business based off your own problems. Like it had to be this whole novel idea, everything. But once that question was asked, I started thinking about the problems in my day to day. And the one thing that was very top of mind was my hair getting in the way because I was training 20 to 30 hours a week. I was doing my undergrad full time and I was working part time. I was stretched so thin, I didn't have time to think about my hair. And so when I had to stop a session to fix it, when I had to take it down take my hair down because it was giving me headaches having it up, that bothered me so much on a day to day basis. Like it seems so small, but when I'm stretched so thin, it's just annoying. It's like the straw that broke the camel's back. And so when he asked that question, I said mine almost not so seriously because I didn't really think like, oh, like who cares about this problem? But I said like nothing can keep my hair up. And after each person had said their problems, we got to mine, and other people raised their hands and resonated with that problem. Because then the follow up question was like, who else experiences this? And as soon as I saw other people resonate with that, that was actually the light bulb moment of, oh, my hair was actually never the problem. It was the product. What if I could create something that could actually work? And I never would have gotten that thought process. It would have been like me always complaining about it or accepting like this is the way it is if that question was never asked and if I didn't see other people also experiencing that same thing.
You know, many people have million-dollar ideas in university but never really act on them. What was the first physical step you took to turn a class project into a real product?
Well, within that class project, the first actual step was like creating the prototype and then testing it. And then once I tested it and thought, "Oh wow, this works." After that, I mentioned earlier about how I was approached by the two business advisors and they had like encouraged me to start this. I didn't know what that next step was. I'm like, I don't know how to turn this prototype into something that can be a business. And so each week I had went to their center, like the entrepreneurship center, and asked for guidance. And I'm like, okay, well, I have this now. What next? I have this now. What next? And as an athlete, like you do what your coach tells you to do. I took it like the exact same way. I'm like, just, I don't know what to do. Just tell me and I'll go do it. So even the fact that I'd come back and they'd say, okay, well, now build 10 other prototypes and test them and see what's the best. So I went home, built 10 other prototypes, got all these different clips and everything, and got the best one. And then the next step would be like, okay, let's get other people to test this out and let's see which one they believe it. So then I got all my athlete friends to test it out. And then it was like admin stuff. So, okay, let's register your business. Okay, let's get a website. Okay, let's get a domain. It's these things that you don't necessarily need that to be the first step. It's more how do you get validation for this pain point that you're solving and then just do whatever is next. And it's not this whole like I don't need to sell 1,000 units day one. I don't need to sell 10,000 units day one. I need to solve another person's problem. And I need them to find it valuable enough that they'll pay me for that. And so how do I do that? And how do I build something of value like that? And then just keep testing and iterating on that.
And you took that class during your undergrad, correct? That was before Ivy?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you got to Ivy, how did that program change the way you looked at the product and brand you were developing?
I actually used the prototype I built in my undergrad course to get into Ivy because one of the questions during the interview was explain an example of when you displayed problem solving or critical thinking. And I remember just pulling my prototype out of my pocket. I'm like, well, I'm glad you asked because I designed this and I created a whole business out of it. And I really wanted to gain that business acumen and the business thinking and apply it towards my business. That's why I wanted to do my Master of Science at Ivy. And that program, what it taught me is very high level thinking, very like strategic, operational. And it showed me that it's not just hard work that gives you success. You have to be intentional and you have to be strategic because you only have so many resources, you only have so much time, and you need to use it well. And how to make certain decisions is what you need to do. But what I realize is that it's also very high level in corporate thinking. And even though I took like certain entrepreneurship courses within that, the best teacher for running a business is doing the thing. Like you can't learn it from a book. You can't learn it from stories. You actually have to do it, and you need to have experience owning certain consequences of your decision, whether they be good or bad, because that's how you'll actually learn and you'll be able to tweak your judgment and make it better. You can't learn that from a book or necessarily the best from a classroom. It has to be doing it.
And you won the Ivy MBA pitch competition in 2020. What was that like? What do you remember from that competition?
That was one of the most memorable times of me starting my business in the early days because up until that point, this for me, this was just a silly little scrunchy business. Like I didn't really think much of it. And because I thought that, other people also got that. But I had this really big vision of this could be part of sports gear and sports equipment. And this is a tool that athletes can use to make their training better, to make their day-to-day and lives better. But I wasn't super confident in it because one, I didn't really know anything. I'm still learning about myself, and to have the business do what it's doing and to have me be in charge of that was very tricky because the business, in my opinion, is like the vehicle of your own personal development. Like how the business is doing is also the stage that you're at and what you can build. And it's just a mirror and reflection of you. And so at this point, I wasn't super confident in it, but I loved it. I knew I should still be doing it. I got all this feedback of other people loving the product and how it's changed them. And so I applied for this pitch competition because I needed funding to keep going. And at this point, when I applied in November and my master's started in January. So I wasn't even like a MB or MSc, like a master's student yet, but I applied because I was no longer eligible for the undergrad one. And when I first applied, I got waitlisted. They're like, oh yeah, you weren't chosen, but if you're open to it, we'll put you on the wait list. And so I was put on this wait list, and 2 weeks before the competition, they told me, hey, someone dropped out. Would you want to come in? I said, yes. Perfect, no problem. I'll get a chance to practice my public speaking because at this point I was terrified and I knew I needed more reps in so that I wouldn't just stand on stage and stutter. And so I use this as a practice of like, okay, how can I improve my public speaking and just show up and let more people know about Hairstrong. I didn't really expect to win. And so the day of the competition, the format is that you pitch in front of 4 judges in a room, and you're out competing the 4 other groups that are presenting to those same judges. So there's like 3 rooms. Each room has 3 groups or 3 businesses pitching, and then the winner of each room goes on to the finals. And when I first pitched into my room, it was all male judges. And so I'm like, I'm going to have to convince men that don't experience my pain points and don't experience my problems that I deserve to win this pitch competition money and I deserve to be here. And I wasn't expecting to win out of my room, but I did. And I was the first person to pitch in that finals room. And thank goodness I was first to pitch, because if I had to pitch after I saw the other ones, I would have gotten my head way too much. But I was first to pitch. I remember like being grilled by the other judges in the other rooms of all these questions. And I just answered them the best way I knew how, like what I would actually do. I remember one question was, well, if you got an order from Costco tomorrow, how would you fill it? Be like, I don't know. I'd figure it out. Like I'd get the funding from the bank and go make more product. Like, I don't know, but it's not like a super sharp business answer. But the point that I got across is that I would just get it done and I would just make it work. And so then when they announced that I won the competition, it was a very validating moment for me that I can't be so hard on myself. Like I have this ability to show up. I do show up. I do get it done. And I was able to relay the importance of this business and what I'm doing towards all these different, very successful Ivy alumni, entrepreneurs, like all these very people that I look up to. And it was just very validating that I used that as like confidence for myself for a while before I like really built up my own.
What's harder, the final 500 meters of a long distance race on the water or standing in front of a panel of judges defending your business model?
That's, that's actually a tough one. I would say the the latter, the standing in front of a panel, because you're not in control of the outcome. Almost like you're relying on others to judge you. Meanwhile, like the 500 meters, like you are in your head, like you are in full control of what you do next. But when you're pitching, you're not in full control. And so it's just that added element of showing up while being judged, which technically it is for the last 500 too. And like your training shows up and like you have other people. But I don't know. I just feel like you're, it's a mental, it's both mental for sure.
And then, what was the most discouraging no you've received so far in your in the business world, and how did you bounce back?
I've received so many no's that it's hard to narrow it down to just one, but I will say that I've gotten better at handling them. Before, when I'd get no's when I started, it would be like, oh, okay, sorry to bother you. No problem. I'll go somewhere else. Like, you're right. Like, you're right. No, you're right. I'll go do something else. But now when I see no, I'm like, okay, well, it doesn't matter what you say. Like, I'm going to succeed anyways. Like, this is still going to go forward. It doesn't matter what you say, because I have so much proof and validation now from like reviews and sales and stuff that I could lean on to know, okay, like I still have something here and I don't need to please everyone and I'm not for everyone. But at the beginning, like, it was hard not being getting responses from, like, let's say retailers or athletes that I wanted to work with or customers at markets and in-person events. And I guess the most recent no that I've gotten, or actually it's not 100% no yet, but I've applied to Dragon's Den like 3 times. And each year I know I haven't been chosen because I see the season air. And so this year I applied in, I think at the beginning of March or at the end of February, and they're starting filming. They started filming on Friday, and I still haven't gotten a call back. So I'm assuming it's a no. There's still like a very small chance that I could get called last minute. But again, like they keep saying no. And at this point, it doesn't matter. Like whatever happens, happens. I did my best. I showed up the best way I could. And if they don't see it, if I didn't do a good enough job showing them the vision, like that's on me. And so next time, if I do apply again, how do I make it better?
You started this business during your undergrad. Speaking from experience, being a national champion student athlete is hard enough. What did your social life look like, balancing varsity sports, a degree, a startup, and other jobs?
Well, there wasn't much of one, but it doesn't mean that cup wasn't full for me, because when someone asks me about social life, I immediately think of like going out and partying or going out to dinners and like doing things that don't also add to your goals in terms of social. But I just had it redefined for myself, where the social time I had was during practices, like doing hard things with my teammates, or it was getting in our extra training sessions where we'd either go on the Stairmaster for 90 minutes at the rec center, or going on bike rides or going on runs, and still getting caught up and getting that social bucket filled that way. And other times when there were extra things that I chose to go to, I would be sacrificing my sleep. Like I wouldn't be getting much sleep that night, but I'd still get it in. But for the most part, like I didn't really go out that much. My goals, they superseded the FOMO of going out, because I knew that if I didn't reach my goals, I'd be more upset than if I missed this night out. And so my actions aligned with that more than anything, but I don't regret it at all, or I don't miss out on a lot of the times that I didn't go out. Like, yes, they're really fun times, but at the end of the day, like I'm very proud of the things that I was able to accomplish by choosing to prioritize the things that I did.
Do you remember having a moment where you saw a complete stranger wearing your product and realized, okay, this is actually happening?
Yeah, I actually go up to strangers that wear my product. I'll see them on the bus or at an event, and I'll go up to them and say like, "Hey, I love your hairband. Like, I love your scrunchie," and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, thanks so much." And then I'll go on to tell them, "Yeah, by the way, like this is my company," and they're so surprised and they're so shocked, and I find that very heartwarming. And it's really cool now because I even went to a rugby tournament this past weekend in Calgary. So like I'm not from Calgary. I did live there for a bit last year, but I went there and I had people come up to my booth and say, "Hey, I saw this on TikTok or I saw this on Instagram. Like this is really cool. Can I see this?" And then because of that, then they bought because they had already had that one touch point, and then seeing me in person and meeting me was the other thing that got them to buy. So it's just really cool with social media as well of how that works and how it got the brand out there too.
Has there been, or what has been the biggest disaster you've had to navigate as a solo founder?
Well, all of them are starting to blend into like one. Like this is really a roller coaster. Like I've experienced the highest of highs and lowest of lows, but after time and after going through so many of them, they all kind of blend. But off the top of my head, when I was first in the first 2 years, oh, actually year and a half because COVID. I started in 2019 and then COVID hit. And during COVID, I had a seamstress and these were being handmade in London. And at the time when COVID hit, the seamstress that I was working with, she decided to pivot and start a cricket farm. And she was like, I can't make these for you anymore, but I have a referral. And so then I went with the referral, like problem solved, whatever. And then a year and a bit later, this seamstress was going bankrupt. Like she wasn't paying her employees. Like it was this really bad thing. And I had an order to Poland to fulfill for like 700 units. And she was supposed to get this done by a certain date. And I told the customer in Poland, like, hey, this would be done on this date. And so I had to really figure out how I was going to finish this order because it wasn't done. And so I ended up paying like double for that batch just to get them out on time. And then I found another seamstress to get them done. But it was just this whole conundrum of like this urgency and, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, how am I going to get this product done and made to get this order out? And then another recent one, I guess, or like more recent, was when the tariffs were implemented in the US on Canadian and everywhere goods. And at the time, I was doing cross-border shipping where I would ship it from Canada into the US once someone placed an order. But if I continued doing that, the duties on that would be insane. And I know that I wouldn't pay that much in duties. So for 6 weeks, I wasn't selling or wasn't sending anything to the US. I stopped US fulfillment. And that also took a hit on sales. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to do? Again, I figured it out. And all these like down times have really taught me and reminded me that I'm the type of person to figure it out despite like the odds being against my favor or like not having the information. Like I will go get that. And so those are like two like business ones that I could see like as a big obstacle or turmoil. But every day I'm like battling my own mental beliefs and limiting beliefs and things that I say to myself. And so as much as this is like a business game, it's also a very personal and mental game as well.
And I believe you landed, I think last fall, a massive partnership with U Sports. And as a former U Sports athlete, and I know when we both started, it was called the CIS. What does that full circle moment feel like?
So just out of technicality, rowing isn't part of U Sport umbrella, but we are like in the same atmosphere. So like to be in part of like U Sports was actually really cool. And and that was like part of my pitch to them. Like I was an athlete at this high level competing, and I wish I had this product when I was competing, or I wish I had something like this so that I wouldn't have to worry about my hair. And there's very limiting funding for sports in Canada, and very like the resources are tight, and we're still able to produce such amazing athletes. Like, why not give them another product or a tool that could help them get that level up against another athlete? And so, partnering with them now, going to these U Sports championships and seeing this such high level athleticism has been surreal. Like, I went to the UBC rugby championships in the fall. I went to their swimming championships in March. I went to the hockey championships in March. Like all this, and seeing these athletes compete at such a high level, it brought me back to those days of competing where you're so dialed in, you're so locked in, and you go out and then you feel the excitement and the heartbreak of either team because like you've trained for this your whole year, and that you can immediately feel that in the arena as well. And it just took me back to those feelings of competing myself.
What is the North Star for Hairstrong? Are we going to see Hairstrong in the Olympics or branching out into other types of apparel?
So we have had a lot of Olympians wearing Hairstrong. In 2024, we actually seeded about 200 to 300 athletes. And so I actually flew to Paris to go see them, meet them, and try and see if I can get it into any other athlete's hair. So that was like a really exciting time. We didn't officially partner with the Olympics or anything like that, but we do have those athletes wearing the product. And essentially, like what I want this to become is to become the brand known for any hair gear, hair tools, and to have these like what are now accessories looked at as gear. Because right now it's an afterthought. It's like, okay, like if you have long hair, figure it out with whatever from the drugstore, dollar store, whatever. But so many athletes have long hair. Like female athletes have long hair. It's part of their identity. Like they shouldn't have to cut it or choose between a certain hairstyle in order to compete at their best. They should have the tools that are able to support them to their goals. And so becoming the best in this space rather than this commoditized one size fits all brand is what we're going for, and to be aligned with the best. In terms of apparel, like I could have merch. Right now it's not on the timeline of like a super big apparel line, but for hair, like anything you need to keep your hair up, like we got you.
Let's go back a decade for a second to September 2015, and you go up to your 18-year-old self at the health science building. Knowing what you know now, what are you telling her?
That's a good question. Um, I think I would start off by saying like you're capable of so much more than you know, and to have confidence in that. I think it's easy to get um swept up in like the comparison game and thinking you're behind and or not on time or anything that you're using as like your benchmarks and around you and like um trying to help you find your way. But I think what a lot of people fall into is this trap that you have to do what everyone else is doing around you or you're behind or it's not successful. And figuring out what success means to you will be the most important journey you will ever go on because it's yours.
Since Suns Out Stangs Out is a summer sports show, I want to ask, what are your plans this summer for the business and also what's happening outside of your work schedule for summer 2026?
So Hairstrong is my life. And I say this in a way of like I have really created a lifestyle around this brand where it could be my sole focus and until a point where I like don't need to be in the day to day every single day with it. But this summer we have partnered with Volleyball BC. So we're going to their beach volleyball tournament in July. We've partnered with Volleyball Alberta, so we were just actually back from their provincial championships this past fall, and this in Calgary, as well as the a rugby tournament in Calgary. And in July, I want to go to another rugby tournament in Calgary during their Stampede time, because that's like a really big time for them. So those two tournaments, and then just popping up at gyms around the Toronto, GTA, all that is really big. And we're launching two new products this summer, one of them being like the adjustable headbands. So for anyone that doesn't have hair long enough to put up, or like you just want your bangs out of your face, we're launching that it doesn't slide out. There's videos of me headbanging with it on, and it stays put. So those two are pretty big. And then it's basically preparing for the biggest season, which is Black Friday, November, December, and that planning and up, like everything starts in the summer because you need it all ready for November. So those are some big things. And then other than the business, it's fitness wise, I'm training to get a handstand, a free standing one without the wall. So that's been on my bucket list for this year to achieve at the gym. And that's pretty much it. Like other than that, like I'll go hang out and see friends from time to time and play games, but those are the things that are on top of mind.
Sounds like you got an exciting summer coming up. Thank you, Nicole, for joining me today. That's it for this episode of Suns Out Stangs Out. Big thanks to Nicole Baranowski for stopping by. Don't forget to check out Hairstrong if you're one of my listeners with long hair. I'm Alex, telling you to keep the heat up and the hooves running. We'll catch you next time on Radio Western.